Yeah, what time is it there in Phoenix right now?
Well,
You guys are back.
yeah, I think. There's some things there's potentially. So Mona Shores put during the delegate assembly a motion
And I leave for the Bahamas in the morning, or tomorrow.
to not support the MASB support
It's just the
for
weekend.
the mandatory
My husband won the
training for
So
the
not only am I
board
going to the Bahamas, but it's work.
and it was like, it came out and like, we were literally like,
And I could
we
do
were
it,
into
so,
the,
yes.
absolutely wanting to vote on it, and a lot of people didn't
So I'm
understand.
excited. We were just there 2 years ago.
Because it
So honestly, to go back to, yeah.
that doesn't matter how long you've been a board member.
But Caribbean and the beach and all that.
And board members.
Where am
I've been on board, and I've got all this training already, you know, like I'm through all this, I'm gonna have to get certified now, after they heard that. We really should support for so I'm, because
Miami.
like, there was tension between
Friday morning.
the attendees
I believe
and the
it's
staff.
So
Sorry, it's okay.
all having our own conversation.
We'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. And I'm going to ask our veterans on the board and anybody in the audience to help lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam
Thank
President,
you.
maybe we should stand for just a moment because it wasn't Veterans Day, and just,
Monday.
yeah, maybe a 30 seconds of silence for our veterans that have served this country.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you.
mentioning that.
Thank you, Madam President. Just, they've done so much for us so we can be here.
Yes.
We miss Veterans Day.
I come from a family of veterans from different.
You know it all too well. That.
Yes, I do. And I'm very proud of all of them. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Meinke to talk about awards, recognitions, and celebrations.
Well, I have the distinguished pleasure today to invite up one of our employees and former board members. Lorraine is in the audience. She's here to do a special presentation.
Good.
So I'm representing our middle school. Last year at Veterans Day, we had 2 veterans in our building. We had Mr. Claren and Mr. Adam Balmer. And so I requested these last year, but it takes a lengthy time to get them back. So I received them back in September. So tonight, if I could have Mr. Claren come up, please.
Oh, nice.
This is to certify that the accompanying flag was flown over the United States Capitol on June 1st of 2019. At the request of the Honorable Daniel Kildee, Member of Congress, this flag was flown in honor of Kevin Claren. Thank you for your And I would be remiss, we have 3 board members that are veterans, so thank you. Thank you. They are Hershey bars. So if anyone knows, Hershey bars received 5 E awards during 1939 to the Second World War because they participated in sending Hershey bars in their ration packages. So the E rations were candy bars that were just normal candy bars. The K rations went to tropical climates. So Hershey made them so they would not melt and they were more of an energy bar. So that's why we celebrated with the Hershey bar.
Very, very cool.
And
Thank you very much.
also Mr. Balmer received his flag earlier today.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's in high school.
Thank you.
That flag was actually flown above our nation's capital.
Yes, correct.
So when you see a picture of the Capitol on C-SPAN or whatever, the flag you look at on camera, that's it.
So thank you, Lorraine, for your willingness to show up tonight and do that, and Mike probably didn't know that he was gonna get his own candy bar. So.
Are you guys gonna split them in half? There's 6 of us. Me, Carrie,
Nope.
and Jessica.
You don't get a whole lot after those many years. I'm taking my chop.
Okay.
Also, Deke Elementary honored 45 veterans on Veterans Day to a continental breakfast, serving donuts, coffee, and juice, and thanking them for their service. So Deke's done that the past few years, which is a really neat tradition that they've started. High school teacher Jim Fuller has been recognized by the students. The students vote on a teacher each month, and he's been voted Teacher of the Month by the students at the high school. So congratulations to Mr. Fuller. And just a kind of a side note, Mrs. Hendricks' class yesterday during the snow day took time out to honor veterans even on the snow day. So they came out and had a special luncheon for them, which is very, very cool. So a lot of kids, you know, they see a snow day and probably rightfully so. It's their kids and they're excited about the day off. But these kids came in to honor their veterans. So a lot to be thankful for our veterans, but also a lot to be thankful for this community and the way that our children respond to these situations. So that's it.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the veterans for your service. Public comments. We have an opportunity to comment specifically to the agenda items before us tonight. If you'd like to address the board, please stand, state your name, and if you could tell us which agenda item you're going to refer to, that would be great as well. Keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. There will be another comment period at the end of the meeting. Okay? Anybody over there? I didn't miss anybody? All right, going forward, we are back to the consent agenda. We have before us the meeting minutes from our previous meeting. The agenda before you tonight, resignations, retirements, payment of bills. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move. Support.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
Sorry. Based on the fact that we had a snow day yesterday, I do not believe, just because of different meetings that did and didn't occur, I will need number 13. So we can hold it, but we do not need to have closed session tonight.
So we will not have it this evening.
We would not need to have it.
So if you guys are okay with amending your motion with the removal of 13, okay? All right, I have Mike and Tony. Any comments or questions?
We're gonna vote on that? I'm sorry.
We're going to.
Yes.
Mhm. Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a consent agenda. Now we're back to you, Ben, for a superintendent report.
Rod, I don't know if I can ask you to, is the computer booted up for Melissa and stuff?
She's not using the computer.
Okay, could you do me a favor? I wanna show something on our website, if you can pull that up. But before I get to that, I'll just let everybody know we had our first snow day of the year yesterday. It is way too early to be having a snow day. The students have an app on their phones that's a snow day predictor app, and they were 99% sure we were having a snow day on Monday, and they were very upset when they didn't get a snow day. So they Tuesday came, and I actually had messages in my inbox from students who are writing argumentative essays on the evidence that supports why we should have a snow day. So I was very proud of our students for exercising their right to write a public official. So it was great. But just so everybody knows, I will let you all know after we've communicated out to parents and that, you know, I try not to bother you too early, but I want you to know just in case you hear that, you know, we might have canceled school. We try to, you know, be very careful on when we do that, especially this early in the year, because we know we have quite a bit more winter to come. So tomorrow I actually head out to my second session for the Principal Supervisory Academy. It's a program that I'm in. If you recall, I'm a part of a cohort of superintendents from around the country. I was selected to be a part of it, and it's been a great program so far. I'm working with Michelle Corbett and working with her on her how do we support her and grow her practice as a principal. And so this will be something that springboards into all of our buildings and how we can at central office support our building leaders. And so it's been a very good experience. I will be there tomorrow and Friday. And so I'm excited about that, and I'll certainly, by the end of the year, I'll do a bigger presentation to show you a few more pieces to that. One of my board updates recently, a couple weeks ago, I sent out just asking if you could send me some dates for the week of December 2nd, if you're available, and I understand if you can't be. I know some of you have already sent me your availability. I'm trying to set up a time where we can meet, have an actual breakfast with students, and board members can come and visit and talk with students and interact in somewhat of an informal manner, but also hear, some of the things from them. And so, you're not hearing something filtered through anyone else. You can hear from the kids, and I think that would be a good experience. And I appreciate Jessica bringing that, idea to me. And so we're gonna shoot for that week. If you think you'd be available, send me your dates. Also on that line of thinking, we are working on getting a student liaison for the board. I've talked about this for a little while. The high school has a process. They have applications out there. They have a committee who will be selecting a student or a couple students. And the hope is that by the December 4th board meeting, we'll be able to meet this individual, invite them to the table, and allow them to start to interact with the board from a student level. So that's going to be an exciting addition, I think, to our board meetings and how we conduct our business. I'm also very excited about an opportunity that I was involved with today. I think I've mentioned to you, and we're gonna do more presentations on this. Our focus academically this year has been purpose. And purpose is about aligning our curriculum and making sure that the standards that we're teaching are the standards that we're required to teach, but also making them manageable for teachers. And so today we brought together for the first time, Michelle Corbett was in the group. She said, I've been in the district for 28 years, and this is the first time that this has ever happened. So we worked on English language arts today, and we had members from the elementary, middle school, and high school sitting down together and talking about what's called vertical alignment. How do we make sure we're building in a logical way from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade on what we teach? And it was amazing, the light bulbs that were going off, and they absolutely worked so well. They dug in, 10 different teachers around the table talking about, hey, we should be doing this, and we could try this now, and I didn't know you did that. And so it was excellent. And so I'm very excited about our work in that area. We are going to meet with all the core subjects in that same fashion, where we have representatives from all levels. And I think it's really going to bear out some very positive work curriculum-wise. So more to come on that, and I'll have more to share as that continues to grow. Also want to let you know that construction is underway. So lots of exciting things happening. Foundation forms are up. Foundations are being poured tomorrow. They're starting at Moorish. They're moving to Elms. Then they're moving to Deke. Cyrene and Gaines will follow closely behind. And those pieces of construction are very exciting. And so I'd like to thank not only the board but their community for their support in that. And we're going to do everything we can to support the promises that we made to our community. So I'm going to go ahead and just show on our website. And actually, Rod, if you could click through.
Yep.
I recently added some documents to our website. You'll notice that our website interfaces just got a little bit of a refresh. The company that hosts our website has done that, and so Travis has been going through and trying to make the website a little easier to read, a little more less cluttered. So if you hover over the district tab there, Rod, if you go down to the Board of Education, and you'll notice that this is an area where we actually have quite a bit of cleanup to do. There's a number of things that you'll find if you scroll down on this page that are kind of hanging out in there. So Joanne and Travis and I talked a little bit today, and I think we're actually going to be working on cleaning this up so that it's not so cluttered, so that you can find minutes and the agendas very quickly and easily. But if you scroll back up on the right side, go over to where it says the bond financial documents and click that. What we've done is actually created a kind of a one-stop shop. Most of these things are all things you've seen. They've been in your minutes. But Rod, I'll ask you if you can click on the first one there, the bond projected cost summary. You're not going to be able to see it from where you're at right now, but this right here gives a summarized projected cost based on the preliminary qualification document of every project. So, and we break it out by building. So you'll see every building listed there. You'll see technology. You're going to see our fees that we paid, you know, to different groups. And then Rod, if I could have you X out of that. If you go down to the next capital project account financial statements right there, this is actually a printout right from our finance software. So this is every check we write out of our capital projects account. So essentially, when we have our bond money, anything that we spend for the bond has to come through this account. So you'll see that everything we do is right there. It's listed. You can close out of that for a second, Rod, and we'll update these each month. You've already seen the next groupings, but if you'll just pick one of them, Rod, on bids, projects, and approvals, you'll see that if you click there, you'd be able to see the documents that you already saw as a board as you go through, and you can see what was recommended in terms of the contractors that were listed. If you go all the way down to the bottom, these are actually the raw bids, so you can see anyone who did put a bid in for each bid division. You can close out of that for a second, Rod. And then if you go to the anticipated bond project schedule and click there, these are things that I know the steering committee's aware of, but I wanted you to be aware. This gives you kind of a look at when do we expect to bid projects, when are projects going through the design phase. So the blue is the design phase. The next color is kind of the bidding phase, if you will, and getting all the shop drawings and construction documents together. And then the final green, it's kind of hard to see on this screen, is actually the construction phase, so when they're going to be building and doing construction on there.
Is that sorted at the top by a timeline of some sort?
It is, yep. So if you go
Okay,
back to the
thanks.
top, the first is 2018, then 2019, 20, 21.
By month.
Yep. And then each month is listed. So you can exit out of that for a second, Rod. And then the last item, if you can pick one of those, we've created bond project status reports. So if you click on, for example, Moorish, the top right here describes what we had told the community that we were going to provide them in the bond. And so those are bulleted out there at the top. And then if you go down a little bit further, you'll notice that specific to Moorish, on the left side, you're going to see the projects that have been planned. So everything that we plan to do at Moorish Elementary School is right there on the left side. It's either going to fall under new construction, remodeling, or site work. You'll also notice the column to the right of that says whether or not the bids have been approved, and as you know, you've already approved the bids for most of the work at Moorish, so you'll see that those have been approved, and then you'll see when the start date is anticipated. Some of the projects have not been bid out yet, like the site work, for example. And then you'll see at the very bottom the total projected cost of the project, followed by how much we've already approved in bids, as well as what we have remaining and what we think we're going to spend in that project. So we've created this for every project that we do, and we've created this web page, and if you want to just go back to the overall page there, we've created this web page so that I know you've seen a lot of these documents as board members, but if you'd ever wanted to look deeper and see where things are at, these are the financial documents that we're using, and obviously if you ever have any questions on them, feel free to let me know.
Very nice.
Thank you.
We
Thank
talked
you.
about
This
this
looks
last
awesome.
year.
Yeah.
Transparency.
Yep.
Very good.
Yep.
Okay,
That is it for my report.
all right, thank you. All right, you have no informational items, I don't believe we have any. Going on to board subcommittee reports, we have policy, which Brian is not here this evening, so unable to join us. I don't know if we have the document. I don't have mine. Do you have it?
I can speak to it a little bit. And probably Alicia can too. Yeah?
They're all in there. And I know that we
Okay.
we looked at, we didn't talk in depth about the larger packet of Neola policies, but we did look at social media briefly and tobacco, which, I would encourage everybody to look through those. They are very hot topics. And we also, Ben provided us with a copy of the Michigan Code of Educational Ethics, which doesn't just apply to educators as you traditionally view them, but we are also part of that mix as board members. And did I miss anything?
No, I think just to let everybody know, all the board members, in your packets, you're gonna find a couple things in there. The first one is the policy update, and remember, we provide the yellow sheets, so this is kind of the Cliff Notes version. So this is the policy update, and then the policies are there on the white sheets, the actual policies. But there's 2 additional toolkits that we talked about in our policy meeting. There's one that's dealing with social media, and so there's a lot of meat in there to kind of go through, talking about the rights of staff and students to free speech and the implications that come along with that as a school. And then we also have a packet on tobacco policies, and this has become quite a topic lately with the vaping epidemic that we have in our culture right now. And so one of the things that schools struggle with is how to manage that. And so I think it will be important for you to review those policies, and then certainly let Brian know, or Alicia or Carrie if you have additional questions, or myself, and we will we'll be discussing those at length at our next meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you. Academic achievement. Guess I'm up next. All right, so academic achievement, we met at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. We had Katie Preer and Kevin Claren, along with Rod. Katie talked about the academic goals, and we have Melissa Wing here tonight to talk about 3rd grade reading, and Katie touched on that. Also 8th grade math and 11th grade career and college readiness, and what they're doing there to help students achieve, whether it's going to college or having a skilled trade. She also touched on behavior goals to address attendance concerns and decreasing our students' suspensions. And then there was a conversation about ACEs and trauma goals. And there was 2 of our staff, Ashley, and I don't recall who else. Terry Bush, who presented to
Grand Blanc.
And talked about what our district is doing with becoming trauma aware, leading towards trauma sensitive, and I think then trauma informed. So, and then finally, to Ben's point, there's a focus on purpose goals, so aligning across the curriculum, across the district, across all grades. What else? There's a district poverty team.
There is a district poverty
I don't
team.
know if you want to address that.
Yeah. Rod, you want to talk about, Rod's on that team?
Yeah, so Dr. Pawlowski came in, I think it was to the superintendent's conference last February, and the ISD has invited teams to come and take part in monthly learning sessions all across the county. And so we've kind of taken, we do have a trauma-informed team, and then we have the instructional team, and now we've kind of melded in a trauma team as well, and so, or a poverty team, and so much of that overlaps, because when you're talking about people in poverty, you're also talking about dealing with the traumas that they go through, and so it's been really great information, and we continue to try to make some differences so that we can impact the kids.
I'm very proud of your team, Rod, because you guys are way out there ahead in so many areas, and to have staff go over to another school and talk about what we're doing and inspire other folks is really great. So thank you for that. Any questions on academic achievement? No? Okay. I think we are
Building in sight?
building in sight.
Okay. Tony couldn't make it because of the snow. He got snowed in.
Yep.
So we volunteered Brian to take the notes. And he isn't here tonight, so
Well, Chuck is here.
I feel like but I've got the notes, so I'll take care of Brian. We went over last month's meeting, Wednesday the 4th, today would be the starting move from Crapo to Morris for the playground equipment The new salt spreader was being installed Tuesday and must have had a good workout.
Yeah.
RC went into the SEDSIG website, and that's our insurer, and went through the OSHA manual to find the required training that we need. He compiled a list and provided it to us. I assume it's in our packet, but I'm not sure. And he is training the maintenance personnel for that, to bring all that up to date. Our first comprehensive AERA in knee-shape asbestos report was created in '88. A lot of the information hasn't been updated, so he's going ahead and having a new inspection completed so that we can use the new report in-house around the suspected hot areas, and to get quotes for the abatements in the future, which will involve the bond projects. Within the next month or so, he'll be taking our annual asbestos training as a department. Todd is going through each school and noting every hazardous material that he can find, so that we make sure our SDS books are up to date. We will then be importing them onto an online portal as well, so they can be accessed anywhere and any time. We also spoke about, or Chuck asked, and RC is going to contact the fire department and make sure that they're aware of any hazardous material that we have. All of the athletic fields and the cage have been winterized, and last week in November, oh no, we talked about that. That was the playground from Crape to Morris. And I believe that's all I had. Anything, Chuck?
I think, I think you covered all, 'cause I took notes. The SDS update of the hazardous materials you did, playground move you did, the Gaines property update, and I think the cage rental we put off, so I don't know if you wanna mention that. Remember the Gaines,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so go ahead and mention that. Is it on the notes, or maybe you didn't take it on
It's
there?
not, it's not in his notes.
Just said that we have a property update, right?
Yeah,
It's now
so
2.5 acres
Yep.
roughly, and that it's been quadrant off, and that they're going to either agree or disagree. Then we're gonna get the survey done, and if it works out, we're gonna sell it to them for approximately $10,000. And the survey was gonna cost $1,800. And then I think, I made a suggestion that we put a fence up over it, though. We take the money so they can't cross onto our property during rodeo days, so we don't get sued.
Yep.
In case they have some accident, because the property's still gonna be adjacent to each other. I think that was it, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Isn't that, yeah, I don't know why it's not in there, but that's what my handwritten notes had.
Okay.
Okay, and last but certainly not least, our finance
Finance.
report.
Okay, we met Monday. We received and discussed the cash and investment summary for October. You got a copy in your packet. The check registers for October have been reviewed and the following noted. General fund, 181 checks in the amount of $340,477. Payroll, 23 checks, $2,270,826. Building and site, 2 checks for $10,834. Cafeteria fund, 8 checks for $172,755. Student activity fund, 31 checks, $24,322. Bond project fund, 7 checks, $234,484. Debt account, which is new to us, 2 checks, one for $1,275,171 and one for $1,349,985. The October check register has been reviewed and is available on the website for you to review. Currently, there are 2 bids out, one for our annual state note borrowing, and it was noted that last year we borrowed $2.5 million, And this year, due to the cuts that we've made, and we will be borrowing just around 1.5 million, which will result in a large saving of interest. The other bid was for 70 chairs for the Virtual Learning Center, which will be paid by the GSRP grant. The low bid was $13,797. We discussed the GSRP grant award for 1920 year. We were approved for 103 slots, amounting to $664,000. We had discussion on the child care budget and received a child care budget summary, and there's a copy in your packet tonight for your review. Last year we had a shortfall of about $300,000. This year, so far, we have cut that down to approximately $41,000. We also had discussion on overdue child care bills and recommend that any parent who is behind $500 or more will be put on notice, given a deadline of 2 weeks, and upon failing to pay will be removed from the program. It was noted that we do have a waiting list and those slots will be filled. Further, that we will contract with a collection agency in an attempt to recover the due money. The first budget revision update is scheduled for the January meeting, and there were no public comments. The next meeting will be 16 December at 3 p.m. and we adjourn at 3:54. Any questions?
I have a quick question on the child care expenses. Are those like private paid individuals? Do we have anybody that has state funded child care, and are we ever behind on those?
No, we have, we have our infant room, we have our preschool room, right? And then we start getting into either GSRP or tuition-based pre-K. And we run all of those programs. Now, GSRP obviously is a little bit of a different animal, but we're talking primarily about our preschool, tuition-based pre-K, and our infant room, where, if you were to send your child, you would have a certain parameters of, and we've looked at some other daycare facilities. I know that we've kind of looked at and said, how do we, structure our rates? We feel like we're competitive with our rates, but we also have not had necessarily the strongest mechanism on collecting when people aren't paying. And so that's where we have to start to put some of those practices in place, where we can't just offer that freely to every person, because we're subsidizing it. It's not, with our general fund.
Yeah, I think that covered it. I was upset over the $300,000.
Yeah.
But we're down, and nobody wanted to do the collection agency, but at some point, we got people using our facilities, our resources, and they're just saying, we're not gonna pay the school district, and we're having to make up the money. It's not fair to the other students, the other children, the other parents that are paying the bills, or anybody as a whole. So I think that was a difficult decision we had at that meeting.
It was, and I think all of us agreed that we want to be helpful to any parent or to anybody. We want to try and be merciful, but it's that fine line, and so that's what we're just trying to deal with. One other thing that I know we talked about, and I apologize, I don't know if it was at finance or building and site, was the bus purchasing program. And I just have a correction. I was corrected by Chris today when I got my instructions. So the MSBO bus purchasing program, which is before you tonight, is actually a program that's put on for the statewide bidding system for buses. And I had reported at finance that it was a 2-resolution deal. It is actually a 1-resolution deal. So when you vote tonight, just know that this is for purchasing 2 buses, and it's not until, we don't actually make the purchase until next fiscal year. So I was incorrect in my statement earlier.
Right, we were gonna do, but let me ask you a question, Ben. Are the prices locked in then?
Yes.
For the prices that we received this year, will be good for the fiscal year of next year?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that's my only question, so
Yep.
we don't have any
Yes,
surprises.
we know exactly what the cost is, and that's
Yep.
in the program.
Yeah, RC gave it to us, and we're good,
Yeah.
we're good with it. And go back to the child care. If everybody wants to make it more than 30 days or 28 days, it'll be at a vote later on, but I think it should be open to discussion of whatever the rest of the board thinks. What they think is fair too. I think there should be a short discussion on that. And this is kind of what we came up with, but.
Sure.
I would make one suggestion, only given, I obviously don't know who these individuals are. I agree, we've gotta put our foot down.
Yes.
But if there's any kind of special circumstance application that somebody may be able to make, my only thought is thinking of just recently, we had numerous families in Genesee County that were out of work because of the strike. So if there are special circumstances and we can arrange some sort of payment plan arrangement,
Yep.
if that's an option as well.
Yeah.
That would be my only other suggestion.
That's great, yeah, and actually we do that,
We have
so
a payment
we
plan.
have, we work with people and put them,
Yep.
help them get payment plans. It's more when, you know,
They're
they're just
just
not
flat out
making
not
any
paying. Yep.
payments, so, yep.
We would have made an exception for, I'm sure, all the
Sure.
strike people. We could always make a resolution saying that, hey, listen, you know, we have, yeah, whatever. I'm
Basically,
sure everybody's all,
I agree
would be
with, I
in
mean,
tune
30
for
days,
that, yeah.
basically, you're given the, apply for your special circumstances we can look at, or
right,
cough it.
Yeah.
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, it's a hard decision.
Yep.
Nobody wants to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Board discussion items. We have a third grade reading guide presentation from our guest, Melissa Wing.
Yeah, we are very excited, and I'm so thankful that Melissa decided to come visit with us tonight. So I'll just give you a little bit of background before she introduces herself. Melissa is one of our consultants at GISD. She is a literacy consultant, among many, many other things that she consults on.
Thank you.
But Melissa does a great job of helping keep school districts aware of not only changes in practice, but things that are going on around the state. And so I have talked to you in past board meetings about the third grade reading law and about how the recent legislation, which requires that every student will be able to read by grade 3, has implications. And I felt like because of the fact that this is the year that this legislation takes effect, I wanted to make sure that we brought in somebody who's really an expert at it to give you the opportunity to ask questions and get the information firsthand. So thank you for being with us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. And I actually graduated from Swartz Creek High School, came here from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Awesome.
1983, go Dragons. So it's wonderful to be back, and thank you so much for having me. As Ben said, I am on a bunch of state committees, and I try to stay up to date so I can support our districts. So, and I collaborate with a lot of people across the state. So in 2016 is when the law first came out. And it was going to affect the kindergartners at that time. So they did it so that when kids entered school, that was the place, and then when they got to third grade, the law will actually, the retention part happens. So what I've given you is a little booklet, but inside, if you can pull out the inside first, I'm just going to walk you through a couple things, and if you have questions, just ask. And I will say that my information is correct as of 7:40 today, because the state sometimes, it's like the intent of the law and then the interpretation of the law. And so we're always getting clarification and finding new things out. And so I'm going to give you the best information I can at this time. So in 2016, when the law came out, there was several components to it. And one of those was that every K-3 student needed to be assessed 3 times a year. And there is an approved list there's 2 assessments. There is initial assessment, which is like a screener. So it's like getting your eyes checked. We screen them at school, and then we send some kids to the eye doctor. But not all the kids we send to the eye doctor come back with glasses, because it's just a screener. So there's a screener that's looking for, does this child have any reading disabilities? Do they have any reading difficulties? And then we can dig deeper with what we call the extensive assessment. And with that extensive assessment, it digs deeper to find out what is actually the really root cause and what is this child struggling at. So we have to do that 3 times a year with all our K-3 students. Okay? If students are showing a deficiency, then if you'll look at this paper right here, and your districts might look a little different from this, and that is fine. What the state said was every student who showed a deficiency, and deficiency is defined as being behind in a subject area, that they needed what was called an individual reading improvement plan. So your district has been following the law, and you will find that all your buildings, if students have a difficulty, they will have one of these on file. And so this was just put together by a group of us from the state, because all the law said was you have to have an individual reading improvement plan. Good luck. So we came together as a state so that we could provide some guidance for our districts. And like I said, your Swartz Creek uses something similar to this. It can be modified, but it really is an improvement plan. So say Ben has a reading difficulty. We've diagnosed it using the initial and then followed up with the extensive. Ben would get one of these filled out by a team of teachers. The teacher could be the interventionist. It's what are we gonna do for Ben to help close that gap? Because we wanna catch that gap as soon as it happens, because it's easier to close a little gap than to let a child keep getting a bigger and bigger and bigger gap. So the sooner we can do that, the better for the child. So that's why they have us test them in kindergarten through 3rd grade. And that's not saying that 4th grade, that you don't give assessments to your 4th graders. They are getting assessments, and teachers are still doing it, but it's just this part of the law only went through 3rd grade. So what we would do is we would sit down and look at the assessments we've given Ben. What are Ben's strengths? Because we always want to go from where our children are doing well, and then it's what do they not have yet? And how are we going to help them close that gap and bring them up to speed? And we want to do that as quickly as possible. And so this is the form that we are supposed to fill out or something similar. So we look at their strengths, what is our data telling us? And then what's our plan for this child? What are we planning to do in the classroom, which is tier 1, and what are we going to do in addition to that to help that child? These are supposed to be shared with parents. A lot of people do them at parent-teacher conferences because we know that we cannot just do this at school. We need that help from parents. So this would be presented to a parent. I'm not sure how you guys go about doing that. A lot of people do it, like I said, at parent-teacher conferences. They sit down with the parent or they make the phone call. And then then this form is also used to track what is it that we've done for them. Because if it's working, awesome. We accomplished that goal. We've set some goals for the child, that student learning goal. What's the next thing? What is our formative assessments telling us? And then at the end of that cycle, we might say, okay, they're all set, they're all caught up. Then that second cycle comes in of that second time during the year that we have to give that assessment. So this is a living document that's supposed to going back and forth between the teacher and whatever the intervention is. But it's also about parents and how can parents help support. So you'll notice if you flip it over, it says parent guardian and then a home plan provided. One of the pieces of the law is a home plan. So for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, if they have a deficit in, say, phonemic awareness, then we would give the parent, here are some ideas for you to do at home with your child. And this is what we're doing here at school with the plan. Here's how you can help us. For a 3rd grader, they are to get a home booklet. And that's what I gave you in this. Okay, so this is the home booklet that was developed by a group of us at the ISD levels. We all got together and we created a booklet that would be useful and helpful to parents, but it also supports our teachers, because anything in here that can be done by a parent, a teacher can do. So in here there are there are a lot of different things in here, but there are, we say 6 components because we added writing because we know reading and writing go together. But phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And we also put in some things about a plan for the read by 3rd grade. Did you know about children? So there's some information about reading every day, some online resources. Okay, and then if you look at the phonemic awareness section, there's a brief description of what a parent can do at home, but there's also a QR code. So they can go in and use their camera to scan that code and watch a video of this activity so that supports the parents at home. So this is the home book that is a part of the law. We've also created resources and PowerPoints that people can use during their Title I meetings, or if you're having a school event, to help parents. Questions on this? Oh, yes.
If the family moves, they take the child out of the district at the end of the year, and they're not going to go into 4th grade, does this documentation follow them To any school in Michigan?
Yes, it can. There's MyRead, which is a
It
system.
can, but does it?
Um,
Or
we,
will it?
we recommend that, people take these IRIPs and they go in the student's CA60 file. So, Chuck's moving from Swartz Creek to Grand Blanc. Grand Blanc would request Chuck's CA60 file. This should be in there, just like any other record, so that when he gets to the new school, they can start this plan, they can look at the data that's already given there, and say Chuck moves now, in January is usually when they do the second round, Chuck would get the testing again, and then they would write a plan if Chuck needed it. But it's supposed to go with them. Now that varies from district to district and how well their records are kept. I'm assuming that you guys keep these in the CA60s, because part of the law is that when they get to third grade, and I'll get to this part about good cause exempt, if they haven't had an IRIP, that's a reason for a good cause exempt. So, but this should follow. There is no electronic system, and there's nobody coming out and saying, hey, have you done these IRIPs? But we know that it's right for kids, so everybody's doing it. But it should follow them.
Well, you're at GISD, so all of our districts, are we all on the same page? Is Swartz Creek on the same page with Grand Blanc, Davison,
Yes.
Kersley?
Yes, and we talk a lot
Okay.
about it at curriculum directors, and then I have a ISD LA leadership team, and people from Swartz Creek attend that, so they hear the same things. Our curriculum directors are hearing it, our superintendents are hearing it, so everybody's hearing it, and principals are hearing it. So everybody in our county, now I can't vouch for every other county, but in our county, everybody is doing IRIPs.
Good.
So, and it is a law. There are no police, but it is right for kids, and that's why people are doing it.
Most of our children probably come inside the county anyways. If we get 50 transfers, it's probably
It's typically, yes,
within our GISD district, our Genesee County district, so.
correct.
That's what I'm more worried about, as long as we can keep track of the kids coming into Swartz Creek. I'm sure Ben and his staff is following the rules and Rod, but I wanna make sure that if we get a kid that some other school districts just like, we're not gonna do this, then we're stuck with it, right?
And
Well,
that is one of the
correct.
biggest challenges.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Just logistically, from what she's explained to me, and you've done a very good job of it and educated me on it, but I'm just saying, hey, we get 3 kids from Flint School District or Grand Blanc or Kersley or Linden or whatever it may be, and we're following the rules and some of these other districts aren't, what you're saying, you're ensuring that they're doing it so we can help the kids
In our
catch up.
county, they are.
Good.
I don't know of
Perfect.
one district in our county, now I know a
I
couple in other
congratulate you
counties
then
that aren't doing it.
to keep track of all the districts then.
Mhm.
And it's not electronic, that's the big thing, cause it'd be much easier if it was electronic and all the,
Correct.
yeah, I mean, that way they could just go online and say, hey, listen, man, we have these 3 kids and no wonder they can't keep up with our other kids, or our kids can't keep up with some other kids that go to another district, right?
They are working on, it's called MyRead, and it is a platform where you can upload and do this electronically, and it's tied to the student's UIC. Now, what I would do, if I had a student come in and I was a principal, when I called, or my secretary called to ask for the documentation, the CA60, I would ask, is this child on an IRIP? Will you make sure that comes with it?
Do we require that from district to district, Ben? Let me ask that question, maybe
It's
we
the
should
f-
make that a requirement.
It's just the CA60,
Yeah,
right?
it's in the CA60 at this point, and it's brand new. So this is gonna be our first go really
Okay.
with it. But it is what you talk about. One of the most challenging things is when we get a student who might be reading below grade level, and they haven't been subject to our curriculum,
Right.
and so we have to try and figure out, well, where are the gaps? We haven't educated this child, and they moved in at the middle of 3rd grade, and now we're faced with what are we gonna do? You know.
Well, I just see resources being used to catch up on that kid, which I think we should spend,
Sure.
but it'd be nice to know about that and where these other
And what's that
districts are
history
at.
and what's been done?
Yeah, that's, I mean, because
Absolutely.
now, it's a big game within this county. Let's send a kid to this district, it may be a little nicer, a little quieter, a little bit more education, or this, whatever, parents are divorced and they're going back and forth, and you kind of boggled my mind there with all this, with all the kids switching around, so this to
Yeah.
follow it. It'd be nice if it was electronic, but
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, answered
Yep.
my questions, thank you.
Go ahead, Alicia.
My first thought goes to, so I think it's fantastic, and I definitely agree that there needs to be a home and a school program or focus. But then what about the parent that doesn't read very well to be able to help? So where are those resources?
And
What is the reading level of this?
Yeah,
it's not
and
very high. But that's why we put in the QR codes so that parents could. We also really suggest that I don't go,
Is the QR code
Mike, your
geared for the
child's
parents,
having
right?
difficulty, here's this booklet, good luck. We really want people to do this at parent-teacher conferences or at some other time where I can sit down with Mike and say, your child's struggling with this, let me show you a couple things. And walk you through them so that it's not overwhelming, but if I verbally tell you a couple things and I flag them and you can watch the video, that's also why we created the parent resources. So we have PowerPoints that go through, and we want you to, if we're talking to you about do a retell with your child, beginning, middle, and end, well, let's give you a book and have you practice and show you how to do that. And the parent doesn't need to read to do that part. I can just say, okay, tell me what happened at the beginning, the middle, and the end. Because we know some of our parents do struggle, especially in some of our more poor socioeconomic districts, and they don't want you, they don't tell you that they are. Nobody comes out and says that. You just kind of have to glean that, but we wanted to be as supportive as we could, and that's why we added the QR codes, and we really cleaned up. Our first version of this didn't look like this. It didn't have QR codes, but we wanted to put something together, and then the next year we got back together and did the QR codes. And actually some of these QR codes, a few of them are by some of our own parents that we had do the video with their child to show them how they could do it at home sitting on the couch. But we have created resources that are available to districts to do that parent and have parents move from station to station or inviting parents. Yeah, that little bug that's been flying around all over.
Not anymore.
So,
Sorry.
no, that's
Distract.
fine. So that was why we did that
That
with
makes
the
sense.
QR codes.
This
So if
does
the
seem a
parents are
little high
lacking, they can use the assistance of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Alicia's concern was, and that's great, because I know a lot of parents are young parents, and they probably don't have some of them are not capable of
Mhm.
teaching.
Correct.
So if you've noticed, our elementary conferences the last 2 years are earlier than the high school, middle school conferences. And one of the reasons we made that move was so that right after all of the testing that Melissa's referring to is done, that those conferences happen, and then they can get their IRIP, they can get their book, and they can know in October where their child is functioning, because they used to have to wait into November to get that information.
Some of this reading I was just looking at seemed awful simple. It just seemed like it was more like at first grade level or second grade. Is that designed because to bring them up to speed and catch them up, or?
That is the goal. And like I said earlier, the sooner we can catch kids with a deficiency, the easier it is to close that gap.
I'm a little ignorant. Are they doing this in second and first grade all the time? too?
Kindergarten, first, second, and third grade all have an IRIP. So if
They have to
anybody
do it.
shows a deficiency at any point, they would have an IRIP.
Why would it go on to third grade then if we were catching it at kindergarten, first, second grade? I'm just, I mean,
Oh no, that's a great question. What happens is sometimes kids do okay in kindergarten and first grade, and then something happens. Who knows what it is? It might have come easily. They might have been able to recognize sight words very quickly, but then they weren't comprehending. So that shows up a little bit later.
okay.
But so then we want to catch those kids, because kids don't just have difficulty in kindergarten; they can have it all the way up through 12th grade. We still have kids, and we have programs that help middle schoolers and kids. But this is supposed to identify the kids earlier, so hopefully they have less issues. But it also might be that on this assessment, they have an issue, we take care of it, they have a difficulty, and then the next assessment, when we give it to them, we notice something else is missing. So, or it could be what we're doing isn't working, which that happens. That happens all the time. So if it's not working, what are we going to do differently for this child because what we did isn't working? How are we going to look at this through a different lens?
So if you were to apply this concept to a child who is learning their sight words in kindergarten and they have they're recognizing letters and able to spell or sound, does this also support them advancing at a faster rate? Or is this more fundamental?
It's more fundamental, and you don't have to fill these out for anybody who doesn't have a deficiency. Now, I tell people don't get mad at me, but I really feel that every child needs an individual reading improvement plan. Whether you are a good reader, or I should say a reader, because if we say good, then we have a bad reader. Nobody's a bad reader, you're just a struggling reader. So we want every kid, but the law states that you have to have one of these if the child's showing a deficiency. But I think every teacher, whether they write it down or not, our teachers have a plan. They know what they're doing with those kids. This was just a more formalized way of doing it.
I think to add to your, maybe to help also to add on what Melissa's saying, these activities are good and appropriate activities. They're included in the, what we call the literacy essentials, the literary essentials. And so these activities are excellent for any parent or grandparent to work with their grandchildren or children, right? To help them grow stronger fluency and stronger phonemic awareness and all of the things that we're trying to build. So it's not just, the IRIPs are for struggling students by law, but this work is good for all.
So do all parents get these?
We do not pass those out to all parents,
Okay.
no. We pass those out to, I mean, we have copies of that available.
May I make a suggestion? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
I was just gonna ask, is this available online?
Yes, it actually is.
Okay.
And
So you could send it, like,
You
as
can
a
send the
parent, you
links.
could get it, I could send it to my parents
Yep.
as the grandparent,
Correct.
let's say,
It's a
or
good idea.
whatever.
Correct.
Or now, are they online, is it the QR codes, or is it the
The Q-
hyperlinks straight to the
Everything,
videos?
everything looks like this, so you can
So
just
you
print it
don't,
out.
but,
It won't be the booklet form.
yeah.
Like, we print these booklets, but, and we offer them, and people use their Title I money for it. You can get them in black and white. We don't charge any more than it really costs us to print them, because we just want people to have them, but you can also just print them in your district. It's available on, I have a Weebly, which is where I house all my ELA stuff, and it's on there.
Yeah, I was just asking, like, for each of these, if you were on the online version, is it just a hyperlink to the videos?
Nope, the QR code is on there.
Okay.
So a parent could just bring it up on their iPad if they wanted to, or their phone, or what, actually, you'd have to use your phone to scan it, but if they brought it up on their computer, they can just scan it. And what I found out, and I didn't know this, you don't need a QR code reader, you can just scan with your camera,
Yeah.
and it pops up in Safari. And then they can watch the video, which I didn't know that was like amazing to me.
Just kind of going
Who's printing
through
these
here,
up,
these
the
are like
ISD?
fun things
We
to
do.
do with the kids
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
Ben, my suggestion was that just kind of like the food thing, some people are embarrassed about getting this. Is there a way to, let me ask you, have you guys crossed that bridge? Like, you got 3 kids that maybe can't read, they're embarrassed or something, and they don't want the book, or do we force it on the parent, or how do we get it to them discreetly? Is there a way to do that?
It's at conference.
It's at
Every kid
conference.
that's behind has
So-
it
Okay,
because
good.
it's delivered one-on-one.
So it's not,
Yeah.
good, that's, okay.
Yep, and the parent,
That's
and
where
that's
it's
what we're
at.
hoping, is
Good.
that then the teacher will say, hey, here's a couple activities,
Good.
and actually read it to them, or show them how to do it at the parent-teacher conferences.
Perfect.
Or at your Title I meetings.
Right, so
And
that
we
way
have
other
some
kids
districts that just give them out to kids who get this. We have another district that gives them to all kindergarten
That's
parents.
kind of what I was wondering, if we give it to all the
kindergartners.
kids, but I don't know if it'd be a
Or
cost
they do
factor.
one through, one per family, and they figure out,
The
that,
first year we did
yep.
We gave it to the kindergarten?
K3.
Oh, everybody got it.
And
I like
then
that.
Previous years we printed just for those getting IRIPs.
Well, it would take the parents some self-initiative if we gave it to them. They say, hey, I know my child's struggling, let me help them ahead of time, and instead of waiting till the conference comes, parent-teacher conference, that's all. Okay.
Is the
That
text-
answered my questions.
Is the text messaging that they can sign up free, other than maybe any charges that related to their phone?
Correct,
schools?
yep.
That's
And
what I
somebody,
thought.
that comes out of, that part comes out of our friends in Saginaw.
Okay.
Because we collaborated as ISD reps to do this, because we thought it was silly if I do it here in Genesee and somebody else is creating, we put our heads together and met multiple times to create this.
That's great.
So, that's the part about the third grade law. Now, in your packet, you also have a couple other documents. And Ben, you tell me when you want me to, which he's gonna go like this right now.
No, you're doing great.
So, we've also created, and I presented at superintendent's meeting, we created what we call the district booklet. Now, I didn't print this for you, but this is for districts, and this is available online. And it's all the stuff that goes with the third grade reading law with the retention part. With the third grade reading law, one of the things it says, if a student scores 1 year or more below on the M step, the state assessment, those are the kids who are up for retention. So they've set a cut score, and with that cut score, it'll say this many kids are going to be in danger of being retained. What I've given you is just a couple documents that are actually in this booklet. This is Facts for Families, so we did a really good job when the law first came out, educating all our parents. And then now we're to that point where I think we need to re-educate, because third grade parents are the ones that it affects their child. So we're putting out some things to help those parents. So this is just a Facts for Families that came from MDE, and it's a very simplistic language for parents. And I would use this at parent-teacher conferences, or at my Title I meeting, or my back to school. You can use this multiple ways, but it just gives some facts. You know, how is my child identified as having a reading concern? So that talks about the initial assessment, and then it talks about the IRIP, which I mentioned to you, and then the Read at Home plan. And then if they don't improve, then their child, and they use the word may be retained, because there are options for our children. Because one of the things we want to do is, what's in the best interest of this child for next year when they go to 4th grade? And then on the back it talks about how they'll get notified, and that comes from the state and the district. And then if they don't agree, then they can apply for a good cause exempt. So what I gave you also is this 3rd grade, you have 2 documents. One looks like this, and one looks like this promotion process. If you look at the one that says the district responsibility, some things come from the state. So the state's gonna notify parents that their child could be retained. And then the school district, the law mentions that districts should notify parents as well. And we're hoping that parents aren't shocked, because they will have seen this IRIP, they would have been talked about it before, that your child, and this is, we're trying to help so that your child isn't retained, and that's why we have the IRIP. And then students can apply, or parents can apply, for what's called a good cause exempt. Okay, and that is on this, there's a sheet in there about good cause exempt, but there are 5 good cause exempts in the law. One is that they have an IEP or a 504. So that's for your special education students, or students that have that 504. Also, if they're an English language learner and they've had less than 3 years of instruction in a district. And I don't know how many you get of English language learners. Do you guys have I say I don't know. Or if they've been previously retained. So if a student has already been retained in kindergarten, that's a reason for a good cause exempt. Or they've been retained in 2nd grade. And then, or if they've had less than 2 years in their current school and did not get an IRIP. And then the third one is that it's in the best interest. So a parent could just say, you know, I believe it's in the best interest of my child to go to 4th grade, and put that in there. We have letters that are in this that your district has access to, letters for parents coming home from the district, but also a letter to help them fill out a good cause exempt. So if they do have difficulty, they don't have to do that on their own. They have a base in which they don't have to write a letter. They can fill out the form for the good cause exempt. Okay. The other way a student can be promoted to 4th grade is through a portfolio. And that means that if they can show, if your district can show through documentation such as, you guys still do DRA, right? Developmental reading assessment, which is a way to assess children, a running record, anything that shows that they can read at grade level, because we know some kids just aren't good test takers. Okay? They can be promoted. Or if they passed the math portion, they can show in science and social studies that they've met the standards, and they can be promoted to 4th grade. Now, if students are promoted to 4th grade, we still need to do something about their reading difficulty. So the law says they should still get in 4th grade additional services.
If the parent requests the exemption for the best interest, does it have to be granted?
None of it has to be granted. But if it is in the best interest of the child, then your superintendent or his designee can say they can move on. The law's a little loose on that.
You're probably talking 2 grade people that, like, somebody got held back in kindergarten, and now they're in 3rd grade, you wanna hold them back again, now they're 2 years behind everyone else. That would be a good, you know what I mean?
That's
And
an exception.
that would be the exception that says they're in there. And
Yep, that's an
help 'em
exemption.
read it, yeah.
And so that one,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, it's that best interest of the child. more than likely, if they've had that many, they're gonna fall under one of these other good cause exempts.
Okay,
What,
but I see that as the parent doesn't want the child to be retained, he wouldn't be retained. I mean,
If they put in that good cause
they're
exempt.
gonna come up with a reason that it's in the child's best interest, which leaves it up to the parents, right?
It still has to be approved by your superintendent.
So for example, let's say we had a student who was reading so far below grade level, and in this particular case, it was the recommendation from the educational group that works with that child, the teachers, the administrators. We would have the ability, and we still do have the ability for placement, to say they're being retained, whether the parent wants them to move on or not. Rarely is that the case that you run into that situation, but just because the parent writes a letter or they qualify doesn't mean that they have to be approved. It is possible though that quite likely if there is a good reason and it's in the best interest of the student, that we would move them forward if they met one of the exemptions.
And then we would just make sure we provided them with additional reading support.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask an example, put Ben and Rod on that spot here. So, and I'm concerned about what Mike says. So Mike says, I put in saying my kid has to go to 4th grade, Ben. How many of you guys, without obviously any names, have we granted a bunch of those? And if we do, I'm sure you guys just give them extra support
This is new.
during summer.
Yeah, that we haven't had to do this yet. So
Oh,
this
you
will
have
be-
Because
not
this
had
is just
yeah.
this year. This year's third
Brand new.
graders are the first.
What are you
group.
gonna do?
Yeah.
What are you guys gonna do? Just
Well,
an individual case basis? And
It'll always be
if
an
the kid's good in
individual
math,
case.
the kid's good in science, the kid's good in other activities, his reading's lacking, we'll give him some.
The research around retention is very, very, very weak.
Okay.
Which means that what we find is that students who are retained actually continue to fall further behind.
Correct.
It's not actually
Beneficial for 'em.
productive. That being said, there are some cases where maybe you have a young kid, right,
Right.
who is just a lot of these, the parents pushed them too early to kindergarten or whatever, and the parents like, my kid's gonna be the next, Rhodes Scholar, and they need to go to 4th grade, and we're saying, well, we need them to stay back a year and get another growth year. That's possible. But it is gonna be interesting when it all rolls out, how we're gonna be dealing with it.
Who's
not
who's
gonna
gonna
be
make that
surprised.
decision?
The best time to retain a child is when they're young and in K and 1.
Yeah.
When you see evidence right away. Our teachers know right away.
Good.
They're already working with those kids.
Good.
A lot of those kids, the families work with the schools and they decide, okay, K1, I'm not cutting it, I'm young, I am gonna be retained because I'm not where I should be. When they get to 3rd grade, if that's already happened, you can't retain them twice.
No.
So,
Got it.
Hey, I got a question for Rod. Approximately how many 3rd graders do we have?
250,
250? What's your best estimate?
10.
Is
10?
that when Dave ran the numbers?
10 at the end of the year?
Yeah. With the cut scores, our research, Dr.
But I don't know how
Our
many of
research
those would
guy?
make any of
Any
these
of those, you'd have to
exemptions,
look.
but 10 overall would hit the original
Did that
cut
in-
score.
Did that include your special education? Do you know?
don't know.
I don't know either. We'll have to ask Dave. Our research guy at the ISD, he ran the numbers for everybody based on the cut score.
Okay.
And so districts
know that.
would know.
Good.
So it's not gonna be a huge amount because of the cut score that they sent, but anybody that's on our IRIP, we know that we still need to continue to provide them services. And hopefully this will not be a surprise to the parents that it is, because we've been having conversations with them. We've been working with them. Their child has been receiving extra help. And like I mentioned earlier, if what we're doing isn't working, then we need to change it. We need to have that menu. And so people are coming up and having more different ways of doing intervention. Because what works for you might not work for you, but what worked for you might not work for you.
What Melissa's explaining in terms of what is now law is what we've been doing at the elementaries with our MTSS in terms of testing 3 times a year and putting in intervention for 10 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
My kid got
Yeah, I was
it.
gonna say,
We're well ahead of
Yeah.
what this law is saying you should do. In fact, we didn't, except for a document that we wrote, the IRIP, we didn't have to change anything when this law came out because we were already doing all of this.
Good.
Just the timeline for people.
And you already have a handle on the kids too, you already know where they're at, and, good.
But it is gonna be, there will be some hard conversations
Yes.
potentially in
A
the
few.
spring, so.
And then I'm sure we'll get a call from parents if they don't
Yeah.
agree with you guys, right? That's what's gonna happen.
It could.
We already know that, so,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, all right.
Does the
Decided.
law help support us to have a little bit more footing when it comes to, we really need this parent to actually come in and get engaged?
I think it does. I think the law's intention is great. I mean, who doesn't
agree.
want
Oh,
all of
yeah.
our kids to read
Exactly.
by third grade? The teeth that they've put in there is gonna cause a lot of hoop jumping. But some of the hoop jumping is important hoop jumping. You know, it's
agree.
important to do some of these things. And the fact that more and more of our school districts, even though we've been ahead of the curve, know where our kids are at and know where they're reading is very important. So I think there's actually a lot of good that could come from it.
Good.
I mean, I guess my question, really, I mean, a subsequent question is, like, what efforts do we take, obviously, to reach out to the parents? Cause I'm thinking, some of them don't even show up to conferences. So if they don't, what's our next mechanism to,
Well, they're gonna get a letter from us as soon as these scores hit, and it's gonna say, your child is on the list to be retained, you know, in third grade for these reasons. And that will send a pretty big wake-up call. So they'll get an email, they'll probably end up getting a phone call, but they're definitely gonna get the letters as well. sent.
yeah, I guess I'm looking more towards the ones that those early,
Like K and one, if they're
yeah,
not
like
showing
you're
up.
already not showing, and then I can't get this parent to get, you know, they don't respond to my emails, they don't come to conferences, you know, what else can we do?
Well,
Yeah.
they get the letter
It
on
might
June
help.
first saying they're being retained.
I know that sometimes when we are struggling getting kids to school attendance-wise, which is an issue we're facing right now, when we go to truancy court, you know, it takes a lot of time on our part, but it does improve oftentimes, and that might have just been the catalyst that was necessary to kind of jolt the parent into action on some of those things.
That's good.
So I guess I'm assuming that there's lots of little side notes and dates and times of how we've tried to communicate and reach out and,
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, and we have
non-responsive.
when we talk about this, we do tell teachers, document. A lot of people, sometimes you just gotta catch the parent when they drop the child off. And, trying to do some of those positive things before, cause we'll be honest, in some district, and I think it happens everywhere, the kids who get the phone call home all the time, parents see 591 and they won't even pick up the phone. So,
I have a heart attack.
yeah, I do too with my kids, because I thought, yeah, well, I have my son Bubba, that was when we got the bad phone calls. But it's really trying to let parents know, we're trying to help your child get better. And this is our mechanism. So I know a couple districts that they just made personal phone calls home from their Title I, and they invited people to come to their parent night, and that's where they went over the home booklet. So there's different things that are going on, and it's just thinking outside the box, and you guys are already doing lots of them.
We have a very high turnout for elementary conferences,
Yeah.
and these happen in conferences as conversations, so they're getting.
10 years you've been doing it, Rod, so it's happening. Let me ask just one quick question. How many other districts did what Swartz Creek did? Do you know just roughly?
Like, what do you mean, what Swartz Creek did?
Before the law took it? In effect, 'cause
Most people were doing MTSS.
Were all the big
This was
districts doing
just
it?
more about formalizing this document.
Okay.
We have, all our
That's why I
districts
just-
a lot of our districts have Title I, and they're giving intervention services. People have reading recovery. They're with MTSS being a big thing in our county and other counties. People are doing lots of things. It's just the law says we have to do like additional things.
So they were a day late and 10 years short in Swartz Creek.
Good.
Because Swartz Creek was already doing it.
Yeah.
So how do you incorporate this messaging into early childhood education so that parents, it's more proactive and preventive? To have those conversations about the importance of reading early, and maybe even doing some of these things when a child is 3 years old so that they're ahead of the game when they get into school.
I do this ELA leadership meeting, and you guys have people come, but we also now have GSRP and some of our Head Start people coming to those meetings, so they're hearing it. But one of the things, and Ben mentioned it earlier, are called the literacy essentials. So we've been working, I'm on the early literacy task force for the state, and so we work with Nell Duke and Tanya Wright. Nell Duke's from U of M and Tanya's from Michigan State. And what they did was they looked at what are those practices? What are those 10 things that research shows, if we do them for every child, in every classroom for every child, every day, can help improve literacy. So we have those, but they've also developed them for preschool. So with those essentials, and they're lined up, a lot of them line up because what's good down there is coming here, but we're also bridging it by having conversations. So, and then there are essentials for 0 to 3, so those are going out to before they go to preschool, if they're going to childcare. So there's 0 to 3, and they're using those, and they're talking about how to get those out to parents, maybe in a birth packet, and helping them, because parents, like you mentioned earlier, there are some parents that are young and they don't know, it's their first one, and they have no idea that their child's behind. But we also have them for 4-5 and 6-12. So the state of Michigan has essential practices for 0 all the way through 12th grade. And so those are the practices, like reading to your child, playing, phonemic awareness games, things like that. So that is helping, and we're having those conversations.
So I work for a health plan, and I'm just gonna say it out loud. There's a lot of opportunity there when you have parents that are going to have children or have very young children to go, encourage them, not just to read, but to do these types of activities. We should talk, because
We should.
there's an opportunity to share information and links. So other agencies, for example, that have contact with women who are pregnant or who have just had children.
I have the perfect committee. I'm on the Great Start Collaborative.
Okay.
And we have subcommittees, and we work with partners in the county. So different faith organizations, but Girls and Boys Club of America, all of those agencies come together and they talk about literacy and what we should be doing and how to get this out to people.
And you're interfacing with folks every single day.
That's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
Like, if I gave this to half of the parents that I see,
Yep.
they
As
wouldn't
a
even be able to
nurse,
read
and you
it.
recognize it, and
So there are
It's a
different
lot of
things that go on at the ISD that, like, I'm on the 0 to 60 month committee, and we talk about literacy and how we can get that out there for parents.
so how
But
do
we need
how
to
do
con-
we
we need
get
to
how
connect.
do we get that
Yeah.
information
Yep.
outside of this?
If Ben will give you my information,
Okay, I'd
just
be
email
glad
me.
to.
And then
Thank you.
Chandrika is part of that
That'd be
at our
great.
CCP, which is our Center for Community-Wide Programs.
Okay.
And they meet 3 times a year, but then there are subcommittees.
That would be amazing,
Mm-hmm.
don't you think?
Mhm.
I know our
Get it and get
nonprofit
it-
will enjoy it. We promote literacy to the Friends of the Perkins Library. We're one group here in Swartz Creek, and we're connected with the Genesee District Library. So if I want some
Yeah.
contact information.
And the Greater Flint Health Coalition, if you're not already connected to
And
them.
I think they are part of that.
Yes,
Because
so
there's a
that'd be
ton of
great.
organizations that come.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, it's
This
very
has been
informative.
really
Melissa.
interesting.
Thank you so much.
Very,
much.
very
You're welcome.
interesting,
Thank you very much. Thank you for the pamphlet.
This is amazing.
There's like
All right, so now we are going to continue our journey.
Do we want to, or do we want to postpone?
It's up to everybody sitting
What
there.
journey?
The coddling of the American home. Do you want to postpone for our next
We
meeting?
can postpone for our next.
Is everybody okay with that?
Thanks.
Yes, I got a yes.
Oh, I'm not.
Are we good? Are we good if we
I
postpone?
don't-
And actually, Brian
never participated in
Brian
it
and
anyways.
Jessica aren't here, so it might be better to.
Brian and Jessica, I think, actually did read the book.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
I have read the
Probably
book.
wouldn't.
Have you?
So,
I feel like
so
I gotta reread it. 'cause
we will
postponed
push
so
that
far.
into our
Puts together for
December
ballistic
meeting,
gelatin.
and we look forward to it.
But I hope that was Melissa's fantastic, and I hope that was informative
Oh
for
my
you
God.
to understand.
It
a
was
little
great.
bit. So
That was
amazing.
very informative.
good.
Appreciate you having her come out.
Sure.
All right, can I ask one follow-up question? When she said we,
Mm-hmm.
does the GISD actually intervene with anything, or it's basically they provide you resources and then our teachers are the ones that are
Yeah,
responsible?
they don't intervene, but what they do, and you can see all of the different groups that she's a part of, they do provide us with a lot of, I mean, we don't have the staff to curate this, right, and put all this together, and so.
But also just to help standardize across the county
Correct,
as well.
and so we know, and she's right on this, where if we have a student that moves in from Grand Blanc, we know that this is not foreign to them, right? You know, this is something that they've seen, so they are very helpful, I think, in helping make it consistent through the county.
So just an observation, it would be great if there was a QR code and a voiceover on these bullet points.
Yeah.
For parents who maybe have a low literacy level.
That'd be great.
Or they're better at auditory learning for whatever reason. This is great information, Ben, thank you.
Yeah, and it kind of actually dovetails and we'll discuss this next chapter, but it all kind of dovetailed into C, which is a parent resource event that we talked a little bit about this week in our academic achievement meeting. We're looking at late winter. We've been reading this book and several
So that'll be
times.
next week?
Huh?
Late winter would be next week.
Yeah, exactly. So
It feels like it's January 18th or 20th.
it does.
right
So I guess very late winter. We've been talking every time we have a conversation about this book. What can we do? We just saw all of these resources. Well, what could we do to help parents? What I think, and philosophically, I just think schools have been asked to do more than we are really equipped to do with the resources we have. But that's just the reality of things, and we need to still continue to push forward. There are a lot of needs, and one of the needs that I see is parents. And how do we help some of our parents who are young, or maybe they're even older parents, or maybe they're grandparents that receive their grandchildren, and they're learning how to try and parent kids in today's society. We need to do more, I think, to reach out, and it's been something that's on my mind for a little while. And so I just wanted to kind of let you know we're in the preliminary stages, and we talked about it a little bit on Monday, of planning a parent resource. We're actually toying with the idea, but we want to make it a really big event. That we bring people in, we have a dinner, we let people eat. We have activities we give the kids opportunities to have fun activities, childcare provided, but then we find resources to try and help not just parents who are struggling, but parents who have their stuff together that want to learn more about how do I help my kid fill out their college entrance application? How do I help my kid apply for scholarships? How do I help my child who's cutting? How do I help my child when I know that there's this thing called sex trafficking? There's all of these things that emotional, social, academics that kids are struggling with, and parents are not quite sure how to help and assist. And so I think we could enter into this new territory of trying to say, how do we help parents? And we say we partner with parents. This is truly an example of partnering with them. And one of our top values is family. We talk about it all the time. I feel kind of like it's important to provide something, and I think we're already curating a lot of different resources that I think parents would find useful. So we're targeting kind of a late winter, early spring, end of February, early March time frame. And we're looking at dates right now. But I just want to have that kind of announcement to you so that you can be thinking about, hey, maybe there are some things that I know in my line of work. We have several people who have been in law enforcement. There's a lot of opportunity to partner with that community. We have several people in healthcare. How do we find ways to provide resources to our families? And obviously we can't spend a lot of money on it, but I think we can do some things to help our families. So, I don't know. Any thoughts or ideas on that?
I think you know my thoughts, I think it's a great idea.
Oh, I think it's fantastic. I actually have a question. Where do you have an idea of where you're hosting that?
We would likely host it here at the PAC.
Or the cage.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
See,
Possibly.
I'm thinking more like community fair setup, and that was my thought.
that's
Is
what I
more like
think,
a cage.
Yeah.
This is what you
Open
do. Do
forum.
the police, do this all school admin, do health organizations, Carrie's a part of, you're a part of. Get local businesses. You have a Swartz Creek City Council person here. Get the city involved on it, and make it, like you said, a family affair from the community to their family.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And maybe the township, someone have them bring an
less
elected official.
presentation style, but more community fair style.
Yeah,
It's
well,
gotta come up with a catchy name, Ben.
that's right. The name is key, and food.
And something.
But I do think it's not. There has to be an educational component.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're going to talk to you about some things and show you and give you resources. But it's also, I just want to walk up to the table where I know I can have help getting my electric bill paid, or
That's where you come in with the cities,
And that's why
the townships, the businesses,
either
police, all
I was gonna
I
say,
think that's a great
my
idea.
thought is either cage style, or you do like the middle school where you start in one area and then you've got little branched out
Yeah.
different rooms
Yeah.
or something, but yeah.
Cage is a good idea, I didn't think of that.
It's more, it'd be more like an event. This isn't an event.
Only issue with
Yeah.
that would be parking.
Yeah. Good. Well, be thinking about that. I'll bring it up in the not too distant future.
Yeah, like early winter.
Yeah. Which is now.
But we'll
Yeah,
have
which
to,
is
we'll have
now,
to start
cut 3
planning
weeks
now
from
in
now.
order to get all those resources.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You need to be on their calendars
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
I'll compile my list.
Academic alignment and curriculum.
So I briefly spoke about this in my update when I was just sharing about the ELA department. And so one of the things that we've been spending a lot of time in, I don't know if the computer's still on. I don't know if Kevin can pull up the presentation from today. Kevin and Rod have worked very hard on developing some resources for our teachers. And I'm just going to kind of share where we're at in the journey. We started the year hoping that we were in a place that we were not. We realized that we were a lot further behind in this area than we initially thought. And so we needed to kind of meet our teachers and our staff where they were. And so our teachers are very skilled. They have a lot of skills. But as a district, we were lacking some essential structures. And one of those structures is, what exactly does a teacher teach in every grade, okay, K through 12? And so districts, in order to meet the challenges of educating children today, we have to have these structures in place. We are absent those structures. So right now, if you think about it, a teacher is given a curriculum, and it's basically, well, here's the state standards, and you can pick, your book or whatever you're going to do, and good luck, and wish you the best. And inevitably, what happens with that, you can imagine if everybody at this table, we were all teaching, say, 5th grade science, or, we're teaching 5th grade, and it comes to science, and you have a particular experience that you really like dinosaurs, and you really liked fossils, and Mike really liked earth and weather. The kid's experience in science is going to be vastly different from every single person in this room, because we're not all on the same page. And that's been happening, and part of our gaps in achievement have come at that expense. So I don't know, Kevin, if you could just show the staircase for ELA, maybe. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is build actually go back to guaranteed and viable curriculum, sorry, and then I'll have you go to that one. So we want to create a guaranteed curriculum, which is basically an opportunity for our kids to learn. We're telling students, these are the things that we are going to ensure that you have access to. And it's going to be viable, meaning that we're going to make sure that you have time to get it done. And so operating without that type of structure, it's all ad hoc, and kids learn in very, very pocketed ways. And so the work that we did today is building out this curriculum, and it's actually neat because a lot of people don't like this work because it's a little more dry. You're sitting there working with documents more than working directly with kids. But some of the teachers that were on our teams really, really did well. If you can go to the staircase, Kevin, I think that would be helpful. And Kevin's done a great job of putting these things together. And so this gives an example. It's actually flipped upside down. You can go back one. But what you'll notice is at the very top, this is actually 3rd grade standards. So we have about 180 standards in English language arts, which can be very confusing. So we're starting here in 3rd grade, and we're talking about something that is very, very much related all the way through a child's educational experience. And so if you think of it like a staircase, okay, so go to the next slide. What we're really saying is, okay, what do if I think about talking about the ability to analyze very complicated texts, what I'm really saying is that skill starts as early as 3rd grade. So in 3rd grade, there's a precursor to teaching them how to analyze complex text. So what is my responsibility as a 3rd grade teacher to make sure that I'm doing my part? Because the 4th grade teacher is going to take it to the next level of complexity. And that's going to build from grade to grade to grade, so that by the time the student leaves us and graduates, we can say that we can guarantee as a school district that our children have received the appropriate education to be successful in life and outside in the workforce. And one of the things that we don't have right now is this staircased and vertically aligned guaranteed curriculum. And so that's what we're building. And I wanted to just make sure that I brought that up so that you understand the work a little bit and why it's important. Because if our teachers are not on the same page about what they're teaching, and that's just kind of left to chance, our kids are going to be all over the map. And that's even with great teachers. It doesn't matter how great of a teacher you are, if you're not teaching the stuff that is supposed to be taught and then is being picked up along the way, kids are floating in the wind. So this work is very important. It's lengthy, it's detailed, it takes a lot of effort, but it's something that we're really kind of embarking on. So I wanted to just make sure you were aware of it. I didn't need to spend a ton of time on it, but I'm going to continually bring this up, and I'm going to be talking about it because it's our educational focus for the year, and we're spending a lot of time trying to build this out for our students.
And you're doing this across all departments?
All departments. Yep. We actually are working on what we're calling the profile of a graduate. And what we'd like to be able to say is, if you graduate from Swartz Creek schools, there are between 8 and 12 things in every subject area that we're going to guarantee that you can do. Okay? And so, if you could say, hey, I'm leaving here in 12th grade, there's going to be 8 to 12 things we say, they're called competencies, that we say you can do for writing, reading, speaking, listening. And our teachers are building out all of their standards to feed those 12. They're the same competencies across the district. So our English teachers today, they have their 10 competencies. Now those competencies are written for that profile of a graduate. So what does it look like? The competency is written in a way, I don't know, Kevin, if you could pull up one, an ELA competency so they could see one. He's got access to all the files on his fingertips.
So before we leave this, are there actual 6 building blocks between 5th and 6th grade?
Yeah, in some
Because,
cases.
I mean, this is representing that chart that you had previously.
In some cases, it's typically seen in science that way. So for example, I might really focus on cells. And so I teach students what a cell is in 1st grade, right? I don't really talk about cells again until 3rd grade. But when I do, I have to re-engage that knowledge of what a cell is, and then I start to tell them what mitochondria is, right? And then I might not touch that again until 7th grade, right? So you see that a lot in science.
Then it becomes more reinforcement year
Correct.
to year in order to be successful by the time they hit high
They
school.
hit biology.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, so our competencies, we have accomplished this already. Every single teacher or student. So I'll give you. They're big. So
Still
this is gonna get a little bit wordy, okay? But this is mathematics, and so scroll down, Kevin, just to see how many we have. I think we have 8 or maybe 9. Okay, we have 9 competencies in math. These 9 competencies are all across the district. So from kindergarten to 12th grade. So what is, if you go to the very top, okay, so it starts with competent learners. Okay, so competent learners create, interpret, use, and analyze patterns of algebraic structures to make sense of problems. Pattern sense gives students a lens with which to understand trends and commonalities. Learners recognize and represent mathematical relationships and analyze change. We learn that the structures of algebra allow complex ideas to be expressed succinctly. Now, that is a very important competency for somebody who's going out into the world, because actually algebraic structures we encounter every day in life, even though you may not realize that. So what we're saying here is that we're going to send our graduates out, and every single one of them is going to have been exposed to this competency. And our kindergarten teachers had to look at that and figure out, what's my role in preparing kids for that? Then the 1st grade teacher had to say, well, what's my role in preparing kids for that? So it makes a lot more sense if you're a 12th grade teacher saying, well, I can do that with my kids. But think about the third grader, the first grader, the kindergarten teacher who has to try and build into that. So what we've done is our standards now are feeding these competencies K through 12. And so we're going to really have a very, very easy to use system. And then we're going to get to that profile of a graduate like I was talking about, where we can say, and we'll be able to make really pretty documents like this and say, hey, we are so focused in Swartz Creek. These 10 things are going to happen. Our graduates are going to be able to read, write, speak, listen, do these things, and that's going to strengthen us and strengthen our backbone as a district in terms of our academic program. So it's important that you kind of understand this is just scratching the surface, but getting you a little bit of an understanding of what the work is about to try and help prepare our teachers to go out there and do that. Because it's like we have fantastic teachers, they're very talented, but if they're all talented in all their own individualized areas and they're not all pulling in the same direction, not a lot moves forward. So that's part of what we're trying to build as we embark on this. So it's been a great start, but it's going to be quite a long journey to continue. So.
Like a conductor conducting an orchestra?
Yeah, kind of like
That's
that.
great.
So.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, going on, we have one board action item this evening, and that's related to the bus purchase. Did you want to talk about it first before?
Sure. Yeah, it was sent out in your packets. It is a very lengthy resolution. It has a memo at the top, and essentially we are looking at purchasing 2 buses. In this document, you will see our bus fleet analysis, which we operate on a schedule. And so you will see our buses that are in our trucks as well. We have exclusively turned our fleet over to Thomas buses. This lengthy resolution is just a part of the way that the system goes. So if you look at the very last couple pages, you'll see the actual pricing and the options for the buses. And right now, it looks like the cheapest bid was the Hoekstra. And Hoekstra has Thomas buses, so that works out really well for us. So this resolution is essentially saying we're committing to purchasing the 2 buses at the $90,000, $90,728 apiece. It's also saying that we are authorizing the district and Chris to move forward in moving this program, and this purchase will not be made until the 2021 school year, so next year's budget.
Question. First of all, I will apologize, I did not ask this question before tonight.
Okay.
In reading this, it appears we're also recommending to sell 3,
Yes.
purchase 2. So my big first question is, does that leave our fleet down 1 when we already have ridiculously loaded buses?
Yes, we have ridiculously loaded buses because of drivers, not because of lack of buses.
Okay.
So if you look at our fleet, we actually have more buses than we have drivers for.
Okay.
So we have a couple that we like to have in reserve, but you know, we are always looking to recruit bus drivers. So we've given bonuses, we've raised their wages significantly, we've offered free trainings. So if you know anyone that's interested in driving a bus, it's a good time to get into that business.
Okay.
Yep.
So with that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Support.
Mike, Tony, any comments or questions? Hearing none. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approve that the school district is hereby authorized to participate in the 2019-2020 MSBO bus purchase program and agrees to be bound by all of the terms and conditions contained in the bid documents, which bid documents are incorporated herein by reference, and the president and secretary of the board are hereby authorized and directed to execute any and all documents
which are necessary for the school's district to participate in the bus purchase program upon the terms and conditions contained in the bid documents and any of the bus purchase program procedures as presented.
You wanna do a roll call?
Yes, could we do a roll call, please?
Mike?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
And Chuck?
Yes.
Okay. All right, motion passes. Go forth and purchase buses. Thank you. All right, with that, we have one patient person in our audience. We have the opportunity for public comments. If you'd like to address the board, please stand, state your name.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
And try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or
Well,
less.
not a problem.
Okay.
Dennis Kramer, council member at large here, City of Swartz Creek. And at first I'd like to say, preface by saying, it's great to see a good working relationship between the city and the school system and the business community. It's all coming together. First question is, on this system, was this developed locally in the school district as a model? Or is it coming from outside, from a different model?
This has been developed at the county level in
County.
collaboration with other ISDs.
Okay,
Yep.
it just sounds fantastic.
Mhm.
If this would have been in place in 1973, when I transferred here from Flint Public School System, it would have been one heck of a tool in its time. And I love it because it's portability. Also, but I digressed. I'd like to thank Kevin for maintaining our Veterans Wall of Honor at the cage. And I'm gonna get together with Mrs. Williams on the 2020 census to get us 2 honor students or more for the media outreach in our community. That's how important the 2020 census is. Because I have it on good authority that our community was undercounted in 2010. That's not gonna happen on my watch. Okay? So, and I've got some great committee members. Marion McCarthy and Angie Rue. You already gave the details on your modernization of the school system, about the foundation, pouring the foundations, things are underway. And I just absolutely love your transparency for what's going on. And the public's, I've just gotta remind you, public's gotta see that, and it's awesome. So I'm gonna be telling everybody about your website, and go to it if you got any questions, all right? That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
Mhm.
Appreciate it very much.
Yep, that's under 3 minutes. Okay.
I didn't even set my timer.
All right.
All right, so with that, comments and questions from the board?
Well, you took my thunder. I actually wrote down transparency in the bond documents, that I thought that was amazing. And I agree, I think that is our role, is to educate and inform the public that they are available, they are out there. It's lengthy, it's wordy, it's kinda hard to, rifle through all of them, but if there's truly question, that's where they are. And then if there's further question, to come to the board or to go directly to Ben, so, thank you for all your work on that. Thank Rod and Travis and whoever else is doing all the work to make sure that all of that information gets out there. Definitely Chris as well. And then secondly, I would like to say thank you to everybody and this district in general that recognizes veterans. And then personally, I would like to say thank you. Your wife's not still here, right? So I'll just make it public. Truly, I think the biggest people that deserve recognition are the families and the supporters of the veterans. They have the hardest job. I just went to work, but my family that supported me, that was the hardest job. So to everybody out there that's ever supported a veteran, thank you. Those are my comments. Now I will read Jessica's because she had to leave early. She would like to recognize the Swartz Creek Flushing. It is a collaborative girls swim and dive team. All 3, and I know this as a previous swim mom, this is a big deal. All 3 Swartz Creek Flushing divers finished in the top 10 at our Metro meet, and they're all competing tomorrow at Division I regionals. That is very big. We've had a program that's needed some boost, and it's awesome. They respectfully placed in 5th, 9th, and 10th. Those 3 divers are Isabella Lenave, Samantha Thalen, and Jillian Besco. Additionally, the entire swim team placed 4th at Metros, which is a huge accomplishment and improved from previously. Which she would also like to acknowledge the Swartz Creek Middle School for doing a human trafficking presentation with the Michigan State Police tonight to bring awareness and information affecting our community.
That was on Tuesday night, I believe, yesterday.
Maybe.
I think it
don't-
was yesterday, was it not?
I think it was
school.
yesterday.
Okay.
Are they gonna have another one? Because I had some people said that they could not make it.
I think
Oh,
we'll
so
try and,
another-
we try and do it every year,
Can
but
we
we
do maybe
could,
2?
we could see, yeah, we'll see if we bring
My,
one up.
my suggestion is if with board support that we ask them to come in again,
Mhm.
because I think one's not enough, and everybody I'm talking to is very interested,
Mhm.
and just to have an alternate date,
Mhm.
and, I know we did it at the middle school yesterday, so.
Might be a good draw for our parent resource night.
That's what, and there's so much interest in it,
Yep.
everybody I
Yeah.
talk to at the
Mhm.
gym or in the community,
Yeah.
they always have questions about it,
Mhm.
and I really think maybe, 2's the minimum, I think
Mhm.
maybe 3.
Mhm.
The state police has resources, we can house them here, and if we gotta have a bigger auditorium, I'd like to even do it at the PAC
Mhm.
and advertise it,
Yeah.
if we could, and get some interest in
Middle
it.
school tweeted that out tonight, it was tonight from 6 to
I
7.
apologize, I thought it was yesterday,
So I don't know if they moved it, but they did another reminder this afternoon.
really, okay.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks.
again,
Thank
maybe
you.
can we do
Yeah.
another one though?
And,
How many
I-
people they have attend, do you know, Rod? Did they have a count? Was it full, half full?
I've been here with you.
Yeah, I think that is a great topic. I definitely second that. And I'm not sure what the state police or the focus is, but I actually attended a conference that, I actually learned even more. The, human trafficking is what they call it, because it actually includes more than typically we hear of sex trafficking,
Yeah,
but it
there's
doesn't
more.
always have to be that. There's drug trafficking, there's employment trafficking, there's just using people in ways that we shouldn't be doing, so.
And they're
It's a-
usually people that are already down on the totem pole,
Yeah.
which we're talking about here to help in the school, so great.
Yeah, I think it's a great addition to the
Mhm.
program.
Great.
Anyone else?
I have a couple things, but I'll let them go first.
No, Mike? No? Okay.
Okay, yeah, on the kids, I know I brought that suggestion up about a month or 2 ago, and you said you're gonna have a child talk here and be a liaison. I
Mhm.
brought that up maybe, was it last month or the month before, I think,
Mhm.
whatever month I brought it up.
Yeah.
But I thought, and I may be wrong, I don't wanna go back to the tape, but I thought I wanted a child from each school. And I don't know if we have the time to do that. What person were you picking, or what you're gonna do?
So typically, your board, liaison is able to, is usually a high school student, because
Right.
they're able to actually have conversation and,
Right.
dialogue about that.
We can't,
But we could certainly, we are going to have, in fact,
I wanted to do a middle school kid.
yeah,
And we don't have to do it all in 1 month meeting, maybe we can spread them out like every 3rd month.
Yep.
And then have, obviously, a 5th grader, somebody that's mature enough. I would love to see the kids come in one from Cyrene, one from Gaines, and say, hey, this is what's happened at our school in the last 3 months. One is, I would love to hear from the kid, if we can get one mature enough, Rod, which I'm sure the principals can find somebody, say, hey, would somebody like to give a 5-minute dissertation to the board? One from all of our elementaries, one from the middle school, and one from the high school, and I know that you're trying to do what I wanted, and I like it, so, and I don't know how the board feels about it, but I think it'd be fun for 5 minutes to hear a 5th grader come
Yeah.
in from Cyrene and say, hey, this is what happened this month, and teacher so-and-so did good, and the principal did good, and blah, blah, blah. I wanna hear that.
yeah. So Kevin, I know you're working on,
So one from each elementary school.
you're
for
working
kids.
on board presentations. You have a couple principals lined up over the next couple months, don't you? So as buildings come
Could they
to
bring a
present,
kid with them?
yeah, they
Have
could bring
them
some students.
Have them bring one of his childs
and
with them, and that would be great.
You're probably gonna have parents that come along too, and they might even play their recorders for you or
It would,
something.
it would, I'm sure that the
Yep.
parents will get a kick out of it.
They would love
If the principal says, we're gonna pick Jimmy Smith to give the presentation to the board, and Jimmy's gonna give us a 5 or 10 minute dissertation,
on what's going on at Cyrene with this principal.
Mhm.
I think it's great for the community, it's good for all of us, and I think it'll lighten the whole board.
Yeah,
I
that's a
do.
great
So
idea.
thank you for
Mhm.
initiating it,
Mhm.
after suggestion, and
Sure.
I
I
like
think
it.
that's
It's-
what spearheaded, we get the update from each building, and that was recommended, is to do like a quarterly report.
Yeah, remember I kinda
Yeah.
wanted that a couple of
Yeah, I
months
think
ago, I
that's
wanted
different though,
that.
yeah, I mean, the board representative
Yeah.
is somebody who's going to be consistent
Right,
every single time, to be
Yeah.
that voice when we're all like,
from the kids.
we
I
think
got
this
it.
is great, but how does that affect you,
Yeah.
you know, John Smith?
Mhm.
And what do you think from a
We
from
might
a
get something
stu-
we don't wanna hear, maybe the
Right.
kid will blurt something out. You know what, I'd rather hear it,
Mhm.
and then, you know, we have to address those concerns. Yeah,
So I
it'd
think
be great.
having both is
Mhm.
good.
It's all gonna be good. If we
For
get a
high
kid from
school
all the
students,
elementaries.
It's a great opportunity for them to interact with the board,
Yeah.
have an experience they can put on their resume and their college
Mhm.
application.
Or speaking in front of
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you know what I'm
just
con-
having that
yeah.
experience is.
You know what I'm concerned about? The kid goes back, the child goes back to the school and said, hey, I met all the board members, and they were really interested in what we're doing at Cyrene or Deke, or, you know what I mean, or
Mhm.
Morris, or, hey, at the high school, they care about our trombones and our
Mhm.
band equipment, that kind of stuff, that's
Yeah,
all. I
that's
think
fantastic.
it's gonna go backwards. We're gonna get inflow, but if we give them some inflow, that's gonna go back upward to the schools. So we need to do that.
That's a
Thank
great
you.
idea.
Thanks for doing it, Ben.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.
All right, so, you already thanked Lorraine, and I echo that. Also, Mr. Fuller, congratulations to him. Mrs. Hendricks and her students who recognized our vets and fed them. And then, wanna definitely, I know she's not here, but Melissa Wing, that was a great presentation and opportunity to learn more and ask questions and kinda think this through.
Great.
So thank you very much, and thanks to the staff as always. And thanks, Mr. Kramer, for sticking it out.
I'll be back.
Appreciate it.
I'll be back.
Go ahead.
I do have something. I don't know if we talked about it in finance or building a site. Those two meetings kinda got intermingled. But we talked briefly about the cage. When we were talking about the cage contract last year, or earlier this year, we said that we were going to open the cage for open gym for summer, and we didn't do it. I'm not blaming anybody, I know we're busy, and the bonds got us all busy. I realize that. But we purchased that cage for our students and for our community, and I'm real disappointed that what we're doing up there. Ben mentioned that maybe during the Christmas break, we could have open gym. I'd like to see this. I looked at the calendar, and that week between Christmas and New Year's, I would really like to see if we can open that up. It doesn't have to be all day, you know, but I would like to see us open it up to open gym and to advertise it before school gets out and let the students know that it's there.
Mhm.
I was thinking today about the food wagon. But I don't suppose we do anything with food during the holidays.
We are actually, so we did a podcast today, which will be released tomorrow. And if you watch that podcast, Michael and Melanie Brumler, who is from the Michigan Department of Education Food Service and Nutrition Program, we talked a little bit about that. And so we are looking at obviously feeding students who potentially are on suspended leave. We're also working on, during snow days, providing food, which we talked about last year. And so the diner can do a lot of those things. So he is looking at all sorts of different things. There are also a number of other efforts like purchasing. I know, for example, Gaines is doing a turkey dinner for people, and the staff's chipping in, and then people can go to Meijer and pick up the mashed potatoes and the turkey and all that stuff. And so there's a number of those efforts that happen around the holidays, but certainly I think having the cage available is a great idea, especially for kids that need a warm place to go and do something recreational. It'd be good.
I think that's a great idea, we should do that, I support that, Mike. And we did talk about the food, though. I think me and you had a private meeting about that, and I've been kinda outspoken about I want food for the kids.
Yeah.
So that just goes hand in hand with that, and we didn't discuss the suspended kids, you said you're gonna take care of it, right?
Yeah, that's already underway.
Yeah,
So
we should've brought that up underneath resolution, or that, you know, you took care of it,
they should have.
yeah. But there was one thing we didn't talk about in finance, I'm sorry, was the Mary Crapel. Remember, we brought that up, and I think that the rest of the board members should know that, if Mike wants to bring it up. Do you remember some of the details of it?
Oh, about the water?
Yeah, remember how much we were cost? I think that was a big deal, cause I was a
There's
little
a-
upset about the money that we were
It's called
spending.
a water readiness, right?
Water readiness charge, we were
readiness
getting paid
charge.
how much, yeah. We're
We're
getting charged a
paying
lot.
$1,100 a month.
And they're paying us $1,000 to hold the building a year.
We paid it $1,100 a month for this water readiness because the water is at the curb. And so the water department is charging us
$1,100 a month. So it's costing us $13,000.
And we got into that because we were talking about winterizing the buildings. And the building is shut down and,
So
Chuck
RC
brought
is
it up.
looking into, RC is now looking into that and seeing if there's anything we can do about that, whether that's getting down in there and shutting something, capping it. So we don't know, I don't know the resolution on that yet, but.
But the
yeah,
board,
and I guess we could
Yeah.
mention, so the board knows that, Community First is requesting an extension.
Yes, so that's gonna be something that'll come, probably in December. They're providing me an update on where they're at. They've applied for their grants and their loans and everything else they have to do. And as they anticipated, it's gonna take them a little bit more time to secure those things, so they're asking for an extension. And they have an option in their option to purchase, you know, to request another extension to that, so.
Yeah, our suggestion was we're not gonna pay $14,000 a year to have the water, they're paying us $1,000 a year to hold it. That was the big concern I had, so, and Mike, we both had that concern.
Alright, thanks everybody, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yes, have a happy Thanksgiving.
I'll see you, Rob.
I say y'all.
Okay.
Y'all.
I usually go to.
You're going to Bahamas before that.
I am.
No, I did not
I
say
am.
that.
Enjoy your trip, that'll be,
Oh, yeah,
sounds like it'll be tight.
yeah,
I literally.
Or
took
go,
her
prize
home.
where I go to shoot.
Um,
Yeah, but I don't.
my appointment, and then, well, we were supposed to leave from that and go to Detroit and just spend the night.
It was a good meeting.
I mean, we're still gonna spend the
Learned a
night,
lot.
but Dragon Spec got rescheduled,
We'll do that tomorrow.
so we
joining
have a
in?
morning.
Uh-oh.
So my husband and I haven't packed a thing.
Yeah, hey,
Maybe you don't need a lot.
Well, we
can you
have
swing by tomorrow?
all afternoon until the
What
band
time is
concert
it
now,
Yeah.
because we can't leave
I'm not
until
gonna be
after
in the
that.
district,
We
but
were gonna
they're
leave
gonna
at
need your
lunch
signature
and go down to Detroit.
on,
Hey,
But
I'm
now
out.
we're not
State
leaving until
borrowing
after the
note.
band concert.
Okay, bye.
I got all day tomorrow to pack.
That's nice.
yeah.
Well, we're only going for 3 days, so I said,
I
we
know,
don't need that much.
I know.
So yeah, I gotta hang around tomorrow, the band concert,
Of
so
course.
now we got all afternoon to.
When I, it was funny because when we were contemplating like right before school, we were talking.
No, by tomorrow.
Don't even
It
get me started.
is, you would never cancel, it is the Dragon Spectacular. I'm like, it is true that it is a huge event, but come on, we're not gonna not cancel school because of the Dragon Spectacular. I have one question.
Which was Monday, not Tuesday.
She didn't wanna cancel after school activities.
Oh,
I don't think I signed the sign-in sheet for today's meeting.
It was the band.
they canceled college. I mean, like, when these shows are held.
Joanne, do you have a sign-in sheet for today? I don't think I signed
That's
it.
exactly
I
right.
don't, maybe I did, I don't know.
I mean, when we can barely drive on.
You might have, but I don't know if I had my ink pen out yet.
Oh, it was horrible, cause I had
Just take a peek.
appointments. Yep, I will look right now. That
Thank you.
morning.
On
I would-
Monday?
Yeah. Sure. I gave 45 minutes to get to Owasso, and it still took me 55, because I ended up 10 minutes late. On Monday, it was horrible.
Took me almost 2 hours.
And I knew exactly when I crossed.
Oh,
the
yeah.
county
Hey,
line.
thank you, Joanne.
Yes.
Secret MTSS.
I'm really into it.
Brother and sister.
I am now too, that I can get these cute gifts.
Oh, she's got,
There you go.
here's some.
We'll make sure there's 10.
No,
Yep.
you're one of those illegal persons.
Yep.
that-
Can you do me a favor?
What
Can
else
you
do
write
you need?
everybody's name on a piece of, a Post-it note?
I'm gonna try to get 10.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Write everybody's name who's here on a Post-it note.
a prize.
It
is.
You get to go first.
You
signed
signed
up
up
for
it.
I brought them all.
I just got rigged in most.
Oh, you did?
We had to read that too. No.
I didn't bring that book, I'm
I
sorry.
don't think I brought the travel
one. That's all I brought.
I did my chapter 9.
Slashing.
You did your chapter late. Everybody
Right on
came
time.
out. Yesterday I got in, there were like
Can I see
5
your
people
pen
waiting
book?
for their chapter. I was so, last night I got in to finish it up.
So bad.
I was like,
What's
oh,
that?
looks like
I said this is gonna
Thank
be
you.
for
Oh,
back
really?
That's okay.